This week on Home and Away in Australia, as David reopens the investigation into his wife's death, will the answers bring his family back together, or tear them apart? Last week, David was taken aback to learn that Lacey had spent the money he gave her from the house sale on a private investigator, hoping they could dig up some dirt on Christina's death. The PI ultimately declined to take on the case, leaving Lacey all the more determined that there was a cover-up. Spurred on by Lacey's determination, David decided to request the case file himself, hoping to uncover something that might have been overlooked and bring an end to the family feud. That evening, for the first time, David forced himself to open the file he'd long avoided. But as soon as his eyes fell on the photographs of the mangled car, the wreck that had claimed his wife's life, he began to break down. The next morning, as the pair moved the last of their belongings into the beach house, David realized he'd left the file out and quickly concealed it in a cupboard under the bookcase. But as Jo began to unpack some of the boxes, she quickly came across it. As Jo began having traumatic flashbacks to the accident again, David came downstairs and was confronted by his daughter. "What are you doing with this?" Shutting herself away in her room as she began to have a panic attack, Jo accused David of taking Lacey's side and not believing her version of events. David tried to assure her that it wasn't the case, but Jo stormed out, putting an end to a planned barbecue David was throwing to celebrate moving in. Jo stormed off to the surf club to track down Lacey, but instead sat down with Dane, Ethan Brown, and vented about the situation. When Lacey eventually showed up, Jo was immediately on the attack, asking her sister whether she put David up to it. As Lacey told Jo that she had no idea what she was talking about, Jo explained that David had reopened the investigation into their mom's death, and asked how she managed to talk him into it. This week, the sisters realized that David's difficult decision could actually give their family some closure, but each one has a very different idea of how they'd like things to play out. A promo for the upcoming episode sees Lacey ask David what he will do if he does find, as she suspects, that Jo is indeed responsible for the accident. "Promise me that you will take action," she states, leaving David conflicted. At the same time, Jo also poses a similar question to Lacey: if David's investigation concludes with no new information coming to light, will Lacey finally accept it and move on? "He will," Lacey replies with confidence. "The truth's gonna come out. And when it does, Mom's finally getting justice." Theo, Matt Evans, doesn't share his girlfriend's confidence, pointing out to her that her dad may come to the same conclusion as before. "He won't, people don't just drive into trees," Lacey retorts. Teaser spoilers for upcoming episodes reveal that David makes a shocking discovery in Tuesday's episode. He's set to obtain a recording of the 000 call made after the accident. He explains to Leah that the recording may give them the identity of the caller, something which could be key if they end up being a witness to the crash. However, a promo which aired after Monday's episode reveals that the caller was Jo herself. As he sits down with his daughter ready to give her the news, could the revelation help jog Jo's memory of what happened in the moments before she made the call? David is drowning in the unknown on Wednesday. Has he discovered that his daughter was to blame after all, or has he uncovered another twist to the story? Lacey's resolve starts to crumble on Wednesday as the storyline continues, while Jo brings her plan to David on Tuesday, 16 September. Will David's investigation finally discover the truth, and will it bring his family back together, or drive them even further apart?